Hello, I'm John Clyde, and welcome to Leaving Six Figures Stories, where I interview amazing individuals that left a six-figure career and they did even more amazing things. And this person today that we have is just another story that I'm just so excited to bring to you. I met this gentleman at an event for Keller Williams, and when I heard his story, I didn't believe it. I was like, so in 9 months, he did $11 million in sales in his first year in real estate. And then I thought that was cool. And then I heard the next year he went and did like 22 some million dollars. I was like, oh my God, he's like superhuman. So I'm excited to welcome to the call today, Montaz McCray. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, man. I'm doing really good. Better now that I have you here. We're trying to figure out the secret sauce to do like those kind of numbers. I don't care what industry you're in, like to do that kind of business with like really no real estate knowledge. Like you see people in the business for 20 years and can't figure out how to do 11 million. You pretty much did it in 9 months. So I'm excited to really dive into that story. So thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be on your platform, and thanks for sharing your space with me.
So everybody wants to know. So where did like how did it start? So you obviously you left a good career. So what did you do before real estate? Why don't you tell us kind of a little bit of your background?
Yeah. How I got into real estate is really crazy. So I was actually in my last semester of undergraduate school, and I took a trip. Took a trip to my friend in Atlanta's house, and he had an amazing position at Apple. He was head of business development, had a humongous house, drove all the great cars, but it was just crazy to me because he was leaving his career at Apple and he was getting involved in real estate, right? So I'm like, you're where I want to be. Why in the world would you be quitting to get involved with real estate? And then so we talked about it. He showed me a few commission checks, and I was like, okay, well, maybe before I pursue higher education, because I love academics, I love school. I graduated college with a 3.75 GPA. So I was just like, oh, I'm gonna go back to NYU to get my MBA. But right before I started that whole process, I was like, maybe I should get my real estate license and check out what the hype about real estate is, especially if he's making tons of money, if he's making a good amount of money and leaving the corporate world to get into real estate. So I decided to take while I was in my last month of undergrad, I decided to take the real estate exam. And eventually that led to me getting licensed. And the same day that I started my corporate job, that's the same day I hung my real estate license.
Wow. Now this guy, it was at Apple, so he was a friend of yours, and so he also kind of did the same thing, right? From what I'm hearing, like he got some success and was like, I'm not dealing with this corporate thing, and I'm doing my own thing. Is that similar?
Yeah, well, he was a little bit more reckless than me because he wasn't he he was doing well. He was doing like okay, but he just jumped into it.
Okay.
Like what, I'm out. But he just wanted to give it his all. So yeah.
So what was the career that you left? What were you doing?
So I was a staff accountant, right? So when I graduated school, I had a degree in finance and accounting. So I had an awesome job, especially since I graduated at the top of my class. So that kind of afforded me some opportunities in a few really nice job offers. So I was working at NSAW, National Association of Social Workers in DC as a staff accountant, and and again, it was an awesome job, an amazing opportunity for somebody who just came out of school.
Hey, so Montez, tell me. So you left this career. Was it hard to leave, or I think there was a story behind it? Like what happened, right? I don't think you just left, right? What happened for you?
Yeah, so about 2.5 months in, I got fired, but it was my fault.
You got fired? Come on, man.
Oh, I know. It was hard for me to believe it too, because it was like everything was like a utopia up into that point. But you know, it was just something different about when I took my real estate course. I took a lot of tests in my life, but it was just a different feeling. Like I knew that real estate was going to change my life, right? It was going to set me up for something greater, for my greater purpose. So, with that being said, I was during my lunch breaks, I was doing real estate trainings. I was on my team meetings. I would leave early so I could go host open houses or do showings. I would find any excuse to do real estate stuff and leave early. And the way that I branded myself on social media, as a full-time realtor and things of that nature, and I couldn't put extra time into my 9 to 5 job to be really proficient and great. I mean, because hey, like making close to 6 figures right out of school, that job is going to demand a certain level of dedication. And it just wasn't there. So I'm not one to make excuses. So
So you
it's
should have been fired, is what I'm hearing you say.
I should have. Eventually I would have, but I had bigger goals.
Hmm.
So I was fine with that. I was fine with that. So but once I got fired, I was able to go full throttle for 3 months before I got another job to build up my nest egg. But those 3 months that I was full time, that gave me the momentum to do the sales volume that I did, because I learned how to operate as a real estate sales professional in those 3 months that I had full time, because I would go to the office every day. I would host open houses currently. I would shadow top agents. I would talk with top agents to learn the sales language and how to
Hmm.
explain the nuances of the market better to my clients. So that 3 months was pivotal for me, because that was the time that I really learned how to hone my skills. And I had time to show up and meet buyers at sign calls and just learn scripts, do script practice, all the necessary actions. And then in real estate, the biggest thing that new agents need to know, you typically get paid 3 months in arrear. So you get paid for what you did 3 months ago. It's not immediate gratification. And that's the reason why a lot of realtors quit.
It's funny you say that. I was thinking back my time, and I had to make a decision, right? I'm like, do I promote myself, which is what you need to do in sales, or do I like really kind of don't get so aggressive so my other job, my dual career, the other career doesn't see it? And I tell a lot of people like it is a decision because then it wasn't like it is today. I mean, social media is like crazy. When I did it then, it was like more like business cards all over, email blast. And, sometimes I missed and had like an email to someone that like was, like a lieutenant in the state police or something. They're like, what's this guy doing? Is he like a trooper? Is he a realtor? What is he doing? And I think the fact that when people pay you good money, they expect you to focus on that career. And, once your attention's off of it, then, you put you're susceptible to what happened to you. And obviously, probably if I wasn't a state trooper where it's like a guaranteed job unless you do something really stupid, it's hard to, just fire someone like that. So I get it. And I think it is a conscious effort to really promote yourself and your craft and your business. But you said something probably that a lot of people feel. You had this feeling that this is something different, right? So, and I think I kind of had that feeling too. So anyone out there, like, leaving is one thing, but being passionate about what you're actually going to do is a whole nother thing, right? You don't leave like not having money, not having a passion about whatever you're going to do. Because if you do leave it, now you have no money and you have no passion. That's a problem. Wouldn't you agree?
That's a big problem. Yeah.
So I know you have humble beginnings of where you grew up. What were your parents disappointed because you had this great, you had the great GPA, and then you go and get this great job, and then all of a sudden you're fired. So how was the dialogue at home with that?
Yeah, so it was very interesting, because again, my parents, they grew up in some of the worst neighborhoods in Baltimore City. Um, you know, their families, did well. We always made ends meet, but they never went to college either. So for me to graduate college at the top of my class, get an amazing job, making near 6 figures, and uh, essentially making the most of my family at 21.
Hmm.
It's just like, imagine being on a pedestal so fast, right? And then kind of getting fired and being thrown off that pedestal, and everything seems as if it's coming crashing down so fast. So my mom was definitely disappointed just because, she was like, you were there, in her mind, like I was there. I was at the tippity top. And for me, I just saw so much more for myself. I knew I could do so much more. I felt like so limited and handcuffed at that job. But again, it goes back to, like I always say the same, like God put the promise in me, so I can't expect other people to see my vision how I see my vision, and go after my goals and dreams the same way that I pursue them, because they don't see it the same way that I do. So I love my mom, but she was very disappointed, and she encouraged me to get a new job immediately. Immediately, because she didn't see me, pursuing my real estate profession at that time as a job, right? Because nothing tangible was there per se. And like I hadn't built anything at that point. I hadn't had any momentum. So it wasn't a job to her at that point. And so it was a tough time. And those are the times where you really have to work hard, and you have to dig deep and pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But I think that made me tougher. I know my mom means well. I know that she loves me, but sometimes you you can't always play it safe. You can't always play it safe.
Did you at any point doubt yourself, or did you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Every a lot, a lot. And then especially because a lot of the books and the podcasts and the trainings that I read, and I did it. I did a lot of training because I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be very proficient, especially with me being young and African American. But it was just very tough because I didn't quite see anybody who looked like me um, at that time, when I was reading the trainers and seeking out a lot of training materials. I mean, I might have not searched as far as I should, but immediately, like when I typed in, top realtors on YouTube, top realtor books on Amazon, it wasn't individuals that looked like me. So I still read the books, I still got the knowledge, and I still got the tutelage, but that created self-doubt too, because I didn't know if it was attainable, success was attainable for African American male under 25. And then at that time I was 21. So yeah, so it was a very like ambiguous time, but I just said, hey, I'm gonna put my head down and I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna do 3 open houses a week. I'm gonna go to the office every day and learn as much as I can from my team leader and other agents who are willing to pour into me and see what happens. But it wasn't like, hey, if I do ABC, I can be successful, mom. I didn't know. I thought she might have been right at one point. Maybe I should have got a job. Those are the thoughts that I had.
It's I didn't even think about having this dialogue with you, but I remember when you talk about being, no, not seeing other people like you. I had this conversation with Gary Keller when the Floyd incident, and as a company we talked about it, and when we did the statistics, there wasn't a lot of top black leaders, black agents, and as a company we made like a decision that we were going to focus on it. And over the last couple of years, I'm so proud of what we've accomplished as a company, but we didn't have a lot of leaders. And I don't know if it's they just weren't in real estate. They didn't feel like they can get in real estate, the minorities. But now you're seeing a trend of folks like you, young, that are getting out of college and saying, hey, I'm going to do this real estate thing. Because now I'm seeing trends more like you, where before, it was unheard of. Like when I left the state police, 3 years shy of a pension for life. No one's ever done it. Now it's like, people are leaving like it's crazy. I'm like, what the heck's going on? But, so you're, guys like us are somewhat of a trendsetter, but, like now you're starting to see it more because you did it. And you probably are inspiring so many people. I mean, the cool thing for you, it's not only you're inspiring young people, you're inspiring people because, like I said, I see agents that have been in the business for years that don't do that production. So, I wanted to ask this question to you because I was curious. So let's say you didn't get fired. How long do you think you would have lasted? I'm just curious, knowing, like, because I'm sure that wasn't that mundane sitting at the desk wasn't what you wanted. I'm just by listening to you, and you got your license and stuff. Like, did you have a plan, or were you kind of thinking like, I'm going to do this thing for a year and then I'm getting out of it? Like, was there any plan or thought process around that?
Yeah, it was probably like, hey, I'm going to do this thing, for a year and see where I'm at savings wise and learn the business, learn the ins and outs of it, learn how to be successful and learn how to communicate to clients. So, and I know success takes time and I know, things don't happen overnight. So I probably was prepared to stay, about a year or so or until my business blew up. But so, I got fired from that one and took 3 months off, got another job, really nice paying. I was remote. And it was like it got to the point where I was probably doing I was making way more in real estate than I was making at the job. And it just didn't make sense because I was starting to get depressed with life because my schedule was very mundane, like in terms of waking up at 6 a.m., starting social media marketing and whatever, following up with clients I needed to follow up with, then working from 9 to 5, and then working, doing whatever showings I needed to do, consultations with clients from about 10, and then waking up and doing it every day. And I did that for 3 long, brutal months of working as if I was a full-time realtor, but also having a full-time job. So it was just extremely, extremely tough and extremely draining time. But it worked because it gave me the savings that I need to feel comfortable to earn a lifetime of freedom to potentially be working towards a lifetime of freedom after I left the job that last time. But that was a very difficult 3 months for me.
I'm jealous. Took me 17 years to leave, and you said 3 months of like, it's funny because like I remember driving to work, like slamming the steering wheel, like in traffic, going like one way to like Trenton, New Jersey. Every for it's like 7 years doing that, and I'm like, when is this going to end? And you said 3 months. It's like funny, but I love about the younger generation. Like you don't wait for nothing, man. Like it's like like before. It's like, okay, when I get to this, I'm going to retire, and when I do this, like the young generation, like I want it today, which is cool because it's forcing all of us to kind of pick up our game. Because if not, the young generation will scoop it up before you do. So I love that you did that. So. I'm sure there's some people that inspired you in a way, and I always like asking this question. So, who are some of the people that you admire and why? Like, who's like some of the mentors or things that people that you looked up to or books you read that helped you on this journey?
Yeah, so the hyper local real estate agent was amazing. That particular agent, his name is Daniel. I forgot his last name,
Yeah.
but he's in DC, the DCVA market. But his book
Okay.
was awesome.
And that's a
I
good.
love.
That's a like a pretty like competitive market, right? I mean, I would think DC, Maryland's a very right. I mean, that's a competitive market.
It is. It really is, and that's why I just for me it's just important that I show up sharper. I consistently educate myself. I know more about the market than anybody else. Like Gary says, being like the local real estate economist of choice.
You're the economist of choice. I love that. Yes.
Yeah. So just being able to advise my clients in a way that no other realtor can. And then also just servicing with a big heart. A lot of people ask me, where do you get your leads from? Where do you get your leads from? Or how do you get a lot of your business? And I said, again, number one, putting my clients' needs first and servicing with a big heart. And they have become, my clients have become my biggest lead generators because they're telling people about me because they understand that I really do care. It's been times where I've told my client, she got a cash offer from Redfin before she listed with me, and we decided, to list there, right? Because she still wanted
Yeah.
to list the property and see if she could get more. But at that time, the market was slowing down. And after 30 days of being on the market, I'm like, well, hey, well, maybe you should. I would be completely okay if you let me go and you revisited that cash offer, right? Just because maybe at where we're currently at and how it's looking, that may be a better offer if that's still on the table for now, because the market is dictating the lower sales price based off of what we've been offered, the local offers that we've got. And she went back, the offer wasn't on the table, but she said, either way, I wasn't going to let you go just based off of how amazing you've serviced me. and how transparent you've been, how responsive you've been, and how you've also always shared the market stats and data with her. And with my clients, I always say, hey, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm optimistic about this. This is the data that I'm using to come to this conclusion of this is potentially the price range that we will be in. I don't know what's 100% going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm optimistic about this because of this. And but she choose to stick with me, but it was because of the relationship, and it was because of the rapport. And I have a client under contract because of her today, right now, one of her best friends. But it's a relationship.
Montez, you learned this early in your real estate career, but you put people first and the money comes. I think that's what I'm hearing you say. And I think any industry, any business, when you put people first, and that's what I like about what you were saying about getting your money established before you like really left that other career you had, because it because sometimes when you got to put food on the table, you put yourself in a position where maybe you're not thinking the best thing for the customer, because you're like, so if I don't get this commission, how am I going to pay my rent, or how am I going to put food on the table? So, that's why I think it's really important to have reserves in any business, right? If you open a franchise, you have to have a certain amount of reserves. I think people sometimes treat real estate not as, like you said, like a full-time thing, but if you have a full-time business, you're going to have a plan, you're going to have a budget, right? You're going to have reserves, and some people say 3 months, and in this market, maybe some people say 6 months of reserve that you can survive. And then also you got to have living expenses for your life. So I love that at your young age, you were able to figure that out. So I know I asked you about people you admire, but let's jump into, you wrote a book. So tell us a little bit about the book and why you did it.
Yeah. So I wasn't thinking about writing a book at all. It was my mom. She was like, so after a year of having some success, she was like, you should write a book. And she said it. I ignored her. And then another 2 months went by. You should write a book. And I'm like, okay. So then I started asking around about who knew companies that could help me with pursuing that goal. And then I let it go by another 2 months. What happened to you writing that book?
Well,
And
we
then
love your mom.
I know, right? I know. And then so I went ahead. I finally set up the initial meeting with the book writer, and I got the process started. And it was a year process. It was a lot of ups and downs, but the product finished a year later. So I was just super excited. And I was able to release it on my mom's birthday, November
Nice.
26th.
So what's it called and what's it about?
The Young Professional's Guide to Making an Impact as a First-Year Real Estate Agent. So not so much like an autobiography. I tell some parts of my story, but I really try to get into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to make an impact as a young professional, and being a real estate agent too, as well as a first-year real estate agent. Things that you can do immediately as soon as you come into the business, and it's touching on a lot of great points and things that help me be successful, right? And I always just try to give that disclaimer, like 100% what I do is not guaranteed to work for you, but listen, I'll just tell you how I did it, and then now you can take your pieces just like how I do. I talk to a lot of other top agents. They tell me how they did it, and I take my bits and pieces. I don't door knock, right? Because I have some top agents that tell me that they door knock. I don't door knock. I created my own version of door knocking, whereas though I know everybody in my gym. They all know my name, because when they walk by, I give a compliment, or we find a reason to start talking, or they have a Morgan State University shirt on, and my sister went to Morgan State University. Hey, what year did you graduate? And that's my version of door knocking. Mm-hmm. I can do that in a supermarket. I can do that in a restaurant. I just like that better. So I just create my own variations of things. In addition, I do that in addition to all my other lead generation pillars: open houses, social media, getting referrals from referral partners. So, just making sure. And then for all the new agents that are watching this, in order to run a successful real estate business, you need 3 to 5 pillars of lead generation. So that's some of the things that I talk about. in a book, because I have agents that come up to me, hey, I want to sell 40 houses next year. And then my next question is, how? And they can't tell me how. So do
Hmm.
you want 10 clients from open houses? Do you want 10 referrals? Uh, do you want to get 10 clients from door knocking? They can't even break it down for me. If you don't have a plan, it's not, it's less likely to happen.
You know, it's funny. 23 years ago when I started, um, it was business cards. So everywhere I went, it was business cards. So if you went out to the nightclub, business card. You went out to the Wawa or the Dunkin' Donuts, it was business cards. And I used to go through like 500 every couple weeks. And that was my networking. So really what you did is what I did. And they didn't have social media then, so it was like, it was really networking and relationship building is it was mine too, because I wasn't a door knocker either, and I'm more of a warm lead type of lead gen person. So I want to warm it up, and then I'm really good at closing. And I don't care who you are. I mean, warm leads are better than cold all day long. I'm assuming
Absolutely.
you agree with that, right?
Absolutely.
So in your young life so far, what are you most proud of that you accomplished so far, either business or personal?
Yeah. So, you know, what, and it's tough because me, I'm the type of person, I just keep going, I keep going, I keep going. But when I thought about it, to sell 11.5 million my first year, and then, I heard stories of some people saying, well, you know what, he's not going to do it again. He just got lucky. And then, I hear other stories of, oh, he only sold that much because his parents are rich, and he was born into this. And for me to know my real story and know how I really got started, and know the work that I put in, and know like the long grueling 10-hour days and long weekends that I put into this, to go and do it again the next year, and then to double it, and we'll double the units that I sold, and do 21.2 million, and not to show anybody up, because that doesn't matter, or or trying to show anybody up. At the end of the day, that doesn't matter. People are going to say stuff regardless. But for me, it was gratifying to know that, wow, hard work really does pay off. And sometimes you don't have to talk, or you don't have to respond to negativity. You just let people watch, and you keep going, because people are always going to have opinions, but you just keep going.
What you just said is so true. And I was reading the Michael Jordan biography. It was like 30 hours on Audible. I was like, oh my God. It's like I'm talking like from his grandparent to like, like through his whole life, and all the people, the important people in his life and their life somewhat. And what you said is true, is like sometimes is that you don't need to really talk about it. Someone doubts you, and it's like, even though like you don't really care, but inside you're like, okay, I'll show you. And it's not, no one knows but you. And kind of like when I left, um, the career, I remember someone saying he'll be back, because you had, like, when I left the state police, I think you had like a year to come back, and then after that year you couldn't come back, right?
Mhm.
So I never really thought about it, but I remember like 2 weeks later I heard like people saying, oh, he'll be back, he'll be back. And I was like, okay, inside I was like, I'm not coming back. You might be working for me one day, but I ain't coming back, um so what advice would you give someone? You wrote a book about it. There's,
Mhm.
and I want to open this not just to new people, but just to someone sitting there, and they're either in a career situation like you, or they want to get started. Like, what advice would you give them to help them grow their business? Maybe not like you, but where they can be on the path to be like you.
Yeah, I would say, the first thing, get out of your own way. I meet a lot of new agents that just like, I'm scared to put myself out there, and I know it's daunting. But you got to believe in yourself, and if you believe that you're adding value to your community or anybody that you're serving, you shouldn't be afraid to scream from the mountaintops about your business and what you're doing and how you're impacting the community. The second piece, once you put yourself out there, or even before you put yourself out there, is the education piece. Because you have a lot of agents that say, oh, no, no opportunities come to me, no opportunities come to me. And you may have had a family member calling to test you and test your knowledge about the market, but you just didn't seem proficient enough, or they talked to another realtor before you, but you didn't hit on a talk to a more experienced or a more educated realtor prior to you, but you didn't hit on those same points, right? Or somebody asks you how's the market, and you just start blabbing off on how's the market instead of the market's great. What particular sector of the market are you interested in? Are you looking at buying or selling or renting? So now you have some time to gather your thoughts and make some informed comments. And more so, a lot of people don't understand that selling is asking questions too. So it's getting educated as much as possible about the real estate market and the nuances of it. But in turn, selling is asking great questions, because now once I know your motivation, that even helps me determine if I want to take you on as a client, especially in this market where houses aren't selling as fast. So if I have a client that says they're only willing to sell for 500, but I see the last reasonable comp sold for 400, maybe I don't take on that client, because I could have been prospecting for four more motivated clients during the time that I've spent working with this client that's unrealistic. And knowing to ask the good questions that, hey, well, if we don't get 500, what would be your next steps? And if they say I'm moving in with an in-law, or hey, I'll just stay here, I don't know. Maybe it's worth referring that out, right? Referring it out so you have your time back because maybe it sells, maybe it doesn't, but do we want to risk it when we could be prospecting for more motivated clients who we know that are going to respect our opinion, and they have somewhere to go? So it's a lot of different factors and nuances that go to, especially as you get into this, because I wasted a lot of time, and I don't say that as somebody who I'm sedated about the clients I choose. No, I've wasted a lot of time. I come from that perspective.
You know, what it sounds like is common sense to maybe us, but what you're really saying is be a professional, be smart. Don't waste your time on things that don't, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a profit business, right? And if you're doing activities that don't lead to profitability, then you might not be in business long. And that's every business, right? Not just real estate. And now, now that we speak, we're in a different market right now, right? I mean, it's not as aggressive as it was earlier, where you put the sign up, thing, sign, sell. Now it's like you got to do everything you just said, right? You got to you got to be the economy of choice. You got to know what you're talking about. You got to know comps inside and out. You got to understand their behavior and what their motivation is. And like you said, if the motivation is not today, then you're going to prep and have all the touches to keep them in your world, so you can go and actually do work with people that actually are ready today, right? I mean, I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, essentially.
And for a new person, that might be hard, but you're saying that's what you did, and you were patient, because I think you said the first couple months as you started, it was no money, and then all of a sudden you started to generate money, right? I think that's what you told her.
Yeah, no money. I started in December. My first closing was like April 15th or 16th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Long
listen, what I want to say to you is thank you for inspiring me and many other people that when you hire a new agent, now you could say, oh, no, I know someone that did $11 million in their first 9 months. You could do it too. And then I can also say, I know someone that did 22-ish million in their second year. So don't tell me you can't do that. So I love having you as my story, because I think, these stories, the reason why I started this podcast is to motivate others that you don't have to sit in a dead end job, or a job that you're not passionate about, or you're not happy in life, or whatever it is, that there are options for you. And that's kind of why this podcast came, because I want your story. Maybe it resonates with someone else where my story did not, and all the other stories that we're going to share on this podcast. So I want to thank you for being a trailblazer. I hope your book does amazing things and keeps inspiring people, because I know it inspired me. And thank you for being here today, Montaz.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and sharing your platform with me. Super, super honored. Thanks so much.
You're awesome, man. Appreciate you. Everyone, I don't know about you. I enjoyed that. He's an amazing human being, and we got so many amazing leaders on this Leaving Six Figure Stories. So if you enjoyed this, please share it with others. I want to motivate them just as much as these speakers motivate me. And I thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.